I never thought anybody in this side of reality would end up forcing me to intensify security around my wallet.
Glad to be of service once again. Wait, what do you mean intensify security around your wallet?
I placed Joy to look over it.
Okay, this is one of the few times I could be seriously outmatched, but I am also very stubborn.
Also, I am surprised you had enough jewelry laying around to pay me back for the money you stole, even if I am left with a doubt about it.
Illuminate me and I might answer your doubts.
Where did you get so many gold teeth? Pios don't come equipped with any kind of dentures.
Oh, I was collecting them for some years.
From whom?
Various people.
Designation: Rak'Gol. Binomial nomenclature: unknown. Classification: Thanatogenic species. Official status: contained. Inquisitorial status: growing threat active in the Koronus Expanse. Recommended approach: if escape is impossible, exterminate with extreme prejudice.
So, today we talk of the Rak'Gol. What a curious name.
People keep asking for us to cover the Koronus Expanse, so the least we can do is cover some other Xenos from it, other than the Halo devices.
Well, I am curious about them too. So curious in fact you could say that I crave knowledge on them. Hey listen, I am Professor Pio, not Comedian Pio.
So, today we talk about the Rak'Gol. Once again, I invite you all to leave in the comments the Xeno species that you would like to see covered next, as we are always open to suggestions. To talk about the Rak'Gol in particular, we have to go back to the Koronus Expanse, one of the most obscure but at the same time interesting locations in all of 40k, that we get asked to cover from a long time, and we will, eventually. But as usual, like in every single video we make on an obscure subject, an obvious question arises: what is a Rak'Gol?
They come out from beyond the light of the Emperor. Savages, who will skin you while you watch. There is no escape. They'll consume us all. Hobvier, survivor of a Rak'Gol attack. Across the Expanse there is one race that is known to all, but seldom spoken of. The Rak'Gol. When their name is mentioned, the speaker may well make the sign of the Aquila for protection, for to speak the name of these vicious marauders is said to invite them to attack. The Rak'Gol are one of the single most feared, reviled, barbaric and inhuman Xenos species encountered in the Koronus Expanse to date. Their excess are only surpassed by their brutality. Though they can be found throughout the Koronus Expanse, these near-primal, cannibalistic hunters are especially common near the ill-traveled Alenic depths, where their packs of ships lurk and wait for prey.
The main territory of the Rak'Gol, and presumably the planet they come from, is thought to be located in what in the Koronus Expanse is known as the Alenic Depths, a region of space formed by dust clouds and shadow nebula that choke the region of light, covering the entire region of space in a thick black cloak. Navigation is next to impossible in this part of space, where even the light of the Astronomicon grows dim and nebulous, and astropathic communications seem muffled and indistinct. The few that actually ventured within the Hellenic depths and came back to tell the tale spoke of star systems cluttered with debris and half-formed planets, asteroid rings, rock fields, and dust clouds. The few planets that could support human life were often dry and cold, cloaked in the omnipresent whips of dust. By day, their feeble suns scarcely illuminated the surface, while the nights were completely dark. No stars can pierce through the shroud of the depths. From when the Rak'Gol have appeared in the Koronus Expanse, only the insane venture in the Hellenic depths at all. The first confirmed victims of a Rak'Gol attack were the crew members of a merchant brig known as the Solace of Dawn, that was found drifting without power near a system designated as 368 2VR3D, found by a vessel of the Disciples of Thule in 710 M41. Only the ship's salvation beacon still operated. The rest of the ship was cold and dead. Inside, visible signs of boarding and slaughter by invaders were visible, but some Vox fragments and Auspex logs were recovered from the remains of the bridge, and they spoke of a new and unknown xenospecies assaulting the ship, something perhaps from beyond the Hellenic depths.
Recovered journal fragment from the merchant brig Solace of Dawn, 7110 M41. Ship attacked by unknown Xenos. We are adrift and venting atmosphere. Astropath Talisha is missing and more than likely dead. Days out from Nitharis. Pilgrimage to Damaris. We were attacked without provocation. I don't recall much of the initial attack. Remember the screaming and inhuman screeching? Nothing human could have made that noise. Nothing holy. They were monsters. Oh, holy God, Emperor, please help. They stormed our ship, crawling on the ceiling, moving like ravenous hounds or strange insects. I saw them grab those who got in the way. If they didn't kill them with those blades, they ripped out chunks and ate them while they were still alive. Now there are only a few of us left alive. The rest they took with them. Fate awaits them. I only hope that...
Uncharacteristically for their closed order, the disciples sent a message containing all the information they gathered from the dead ship to Altar Templum Calixis X-17. In turn, the Mechanicus gifted the information to an infrequent Navy patrol traveling through the Maw. War spread pretty fast, and the conclusion was pretty obvious. A new threat had emerged in the Koronus Expanse. It would be decades of countless atrocities before anyone knew more about this Xenos race. The burning of Monastery 20, thousands dead on Savolis, the daughters of Regals. Eventually, however, the Xenos had a name, the Rak'Gol. Even prior to the first confirmed human losses, races such as the Strixis and the Varkin mentioned the Rak'Gol when dealing with human cultures. Ancient legends from several cultures spoke of a race that traveled the stars, eradicating all life wherever they went. The Rak'Gol started expanding in the Koronus Expanse soon after the events with the Solace of Dawn, eradicating all sentient life on dozens of planets. In some instances, these were isolated populations of primitive Xenos. In others, the creatures destroyed larger human settlements, including the one on the planet on Nipson's Prize.
Nipson's Prize. This world was once held by human colonists, lost to the Imperium for several millennia. The inhabitants lived a simple agrarian lifestyle on a planet that possessed long growing seasons. Most of them lived contented, peaceful lives of quiet contemplation and farming. Their technology regressed and stagnated, to the point that their agricultural equipment was primarily powered by native animals. Vessels associated with House Macau re-established contact with Nipson's Prize in 784 and 41. At that time, they created agreements to exchange substantial portions of the world's agricultural output in trade for off-world communications, information, and the selection of imperial supplies. The arrangement worked effectively for just over a decade of regular shipments and communication. Then, the Sacred Testament arrived to find the world a toxic wasteland, its population completely eliminated, its landscape devastated with huge craters, and its atmosphere a radioactive hell. Ship sensors suggest that a Rak'Gol vessel may have crashed into the surface of the planet, unleashing the scarring radiation. No further details have been recovered, though rumors suggest House Macau has made several failed attempts to recover the remains of the crashed Xenos ship.
The Rak'Gol are a mindless beast-like Xenos species. They embody the traits of brutality and unrestrained savagery like no other, not even the orcs. Their actions follow no other pattern but one of pure violence. Huge swaths of destroyed vessels, stations and even colonies are often the only indications of their passage, seemingly without a true pattern emerging from their attacks. But this will need a bit of discussing later into the video. And don't think for a second that they have any sense of self-preservation. The Rak'Gol live only to destroy everything in their path. Their survival is optional at best, not required at worst. And we can see this clearly in an ambush set up by rogue trader Tallen to try and capture alive a member of the Rak'Gol race.
Albers commanded our ship to leave silent running and launch an all-out attack on the Mauler's weaker aft armor. Within 2 salvos, our attacks shattered the vessel, leaving the Xenos no hope for retreat. It was only moments later that the plan began to come apart. We had hoped that with their only chance for escape destroyed, the Xenos would negotiate some plan for survival. After all, any sane being should prefer survival over certain death. It's now obvious that our only mistake was assuming these creatures were sane. They are not even predators, only destroyers. A predator makes use of what it kills. Within moments of the Xenos realizing that their vessel had been destroyed, they threw themselves at the transport with renewed fury. Over the Vox, I heard the sounds of battle interspersed with cries for reinforcements, and Xenos' howls of fury. As the battle continued, I admit I chafed under Alberse's request that I remain aboard the Arius. It sounded as if quite the combat took place between our stalwarts and the foul creatures, and I wish I could have been there to direct things personally. Then, the signals stopped abruptly, and beyond our viewports we watched the transport explode.
Very few humans ever survive an encounter with these highly aggressive Xenos, and those that do usually don't retain sufficient sanity to recall correctly the stories of what happened. Now, you might wonder what the Xenos physiology of a Rak'Gol is like. Well, let me explain to you what these things are in detail. The typical Rak'Gol possesses 8 limbs. Normally, when they aren't pursuing prey, they tend to walk upright on 4 limbs, using the other 4 to perform various other functions. However, when they are hunting for prey, they can easily shift into using all of their 8 limbs for locomotion. A Rak'Gol's upper 4 limbs possess adaptable grasping appendages, and they can actively change the composition of their musculature to use them as hands. These appendages are strong enough that an adult Rak'Gol can actually climb and run completely upside down, attached to virtually any surface. The Rak'Gol also possess prehensile tails that assist in balance. In addition, the Rak'Gol possess keen senses of smell and sight, and these are often enhanced through their use of cybernetics and bionics.
Ah, so not only these things are already monsters as is, they also enhance their bodies with technology. No wonder they are so dangerous.
When standing upright, the Rak'Gol tower over humans, standing at least 2.6 meters tall and weighing up to 175 kilograms. For reference, if their smallest height is 2.6 meters, they're already taller than a Primaris space marine, and there is actively bigger ones. To humans, this xenospecies appears reptilian. However, their skin does not possess the telltale scales that many reptile species exhibit. Instead, their skin possesses a rough-hewn texture, almost stone-like, very similar to ancient Terran lizards. The Rak'Gol are primitive in many ways, but they have still progressed to the point of being able to build crude voice ships and bionics. But they have nonetheless developed a society divided in castes. Ah yeah, and before we move on, to save time, the Lexicanon page on the Rak'Gol mentions 5 of them. There is actually 7, so another 2 mistakes. The castes in order are as following. The Rak'Gol Carvers, missing from Lexicanum. They are a subset of the Rak'Gol species that have recently been seen spearheading their lightning assaults. These creatures are slightly smaller than their compatriots, but they still tower over normal humans. Built for speed instead of raw power and armed with savage melee weapons. They are considered the scouts of the Rak'Gol species, usually preceding assaults from the larger members of their species. The Rak'Gol Marauders. They are the foot troops of the Rak'Gol species. Most of these wretched Xenos are modified with at least one type of cybernetic implant, though it is far more common for them to have more. These creatures have surpassed the ritual known as the Blooding and have survived an hunt and gained the right to join the others. They are capable of some level of tactical cunning, but more often than not, Marauders overwhelm their opponents with speed and raw ferocity, as they are crazy and bloodthirsty to the point that they revel in the destruction they cause. They are the most commonly faced members of their race whenever a ship is boarded by a Rak'Gol assault party. Usually they hunt in packs of 10 to 20, making most of their terror mob tactics. They are brutal, but they are not mindless. Then we have the other variant of the Rak'Gol species missing from Lexicanum, the Rak'Gol Render. They are probably the most heavily modified members of the species when it comes to cybernetics. The Renders are larger and even more violent than the typical Rak'Gol, usually equipped only and exclusively for melee combat instead of using any ranged weaponry. Studies conducted on recovered Render bodies show a 45% increase in muscle mass when compared to Marauders with a comparably sized skeletal structure. They have more powerful sensory organs, but an even more bestial mind. They are extremely bloodthirsty, but they seem almost like disposable troops, being thrown as the first line in many assaults from Rak'Gol void ships. They have even been observed to be so utterly mindless to be unable of even opening an unlocked pressurized door to continue in the pursuit of their prey. Not that it matters, as they are usually capable of smashing their way through most reinforced walls. Then we have the Rak'Gol Clutch Masters and Broodmasters. The Clutch Masters usually are lieutenants that obey the Broodmasters, but the Broodmasters themselves are the commanders of the Marauders. They are the ones who captain the larger ships of the Rak'Gol forces. They are typically distinguished by the amount of bionics and cybernetics their bodies support, and by the fact they inspire the loyalty of the other Rak'Gol, especially the Marauders. They are the ones organizing the attacks of the Rak'Gol forces, using tactics resembling those of bestial predators, usually by laying ships in wait along known warp routes to assault ships exiting the warp as they appear, disable them, board them, kill almost everyone on board, but leave some survivors to make a call for help, so that more ships appear in system and fall for the ambush. Then we have the Rak'Gol Techno Shamans. Now, little addendum before covering them. All the sources on the Rak'Gol contradict themselves on one thing specifically, if they have Psykers or not. Rogue Trader Edge of the Abyss says they don't. Rogue Trader the Koronus Bestiary says they might. Rogue Trader the Navis Primer introduces the Techno Shamans, which are confirmed to be Rak'Gol Psykers. Usual quality control under Games Workshop, I see. Anyway, the Rak'Gol Techno Shamans are relatively rare sights in the encounters the Imperium had with them. They are terrifying destroyers, blurring the line between mind and machine and unleashing brutal torrents of invisible annihilation from strange, crystalline implants that seem to have grown into their bodies. They usually join an ant only on one specific occasion, as it has been observed by many not public reports, but that we will discuss in detail in a bit. And then we have the commanders and leaders of the Rak'Gol race, the Abominations. The Abominations are the rarest caste of the Rak'Gol encountered by the people living in the Koronus, and appear to be the leaders of their entire species. Each one's appearance is unique and heavily modified. Many of them possess the bionic and cybernetic implants that are ubiquitous to the Rak'Gol, yet they also have been modified by what appears to be implants and devices very similar to those of another alien race.
Really keeping everyone on the edge, are we, Danny?
Abominations are always accompanied by other large Rak'Gol specimens, that are believed to be their personal bodyguards. If the Imperial analyses are correct, then the Abominations are involved in selecting the places where the Rak'Gol launch their attacks. And it is here that something arises that some members of the Ordo Xenos have observed. A pattern, and specifically a pattern observed in the symbols many Rak'Gol carry. Some of their technology, but especially what their Techno Shamans usually deploy to hunt. UVAT technology.
Abominations and the Yuvath. There are many reasons the Rak'Gol Abominations have such a strong desire to locate ancient caches of Yuvath technology. They've been found throughout the rimward areas of the Koronus Expanse, looting various ancient Yuvath hordes. One thought is that the leadership caste is drawn to the sites of the Yuvath, answering some sort of instinctual need to gather these ancient artifacts. Another theory is that the Rak'Gol were once the foot troops of the Yuvath in other parts of the galaxy, and that only in the past century have they arrived to answer their masters' long ago summons, especially as it's unknown how they are able to achieve faster than light travel. The last possibility is that the Rak'Gol have found a kindred spirit in the Yuvath, whose appetites for wholesale slaughter and the corrupting power of chaos mirror those of the Rak'Gol.
The Yuvath were another openly hostile xenospecies eliminated in an event known as the Angevin Crusade, that we really need to cover one of these days. One thing common around the patterns of invasion, attack, and especially the deployment of the Techno Shamans is that they seem to focus mainly on recovering Yuvath technology for their own personal purpose that nobody has yet discovered, as no Rak'Gol alien has ever been captured alive. The moment they find themselves cornered, they go completely berserk, either slaughtering the people trying to capture them, or throwing themselves against their captors until they either die or have to be put down. But one thing is for certain, they're expanding through the Koronus, and the more the Imperium observes how they do it, the more a pattern emerges.
Path of invasion. When one plots all of the attacks the Rak'Gol have made over the past century, it clearly shows that they seem to be following some manner of path or direction. From the Alenic deaths, up past the God Emperor's Scourge Coreward, to the Faniel Echo Spinward, a pattern is beginning to emerge. What the Xenos are looking for, or why they have chosen this route, is anyone's guess.
Removing the Yuvath technology they take and often repurpose, Rak'Gol technology is quite primitive, but no less functional. They are capable of building and using projectile weapons, and also to build melee weapons like monoblades. They are also capable of navigating the Immaterium, even with how primitive their technology and especially their ships are. They also, as we said, make use of bionics and cybernetic implants, which seem almost to represent a status symbol for their species, and especially in their hierarchy. But their species also shows signs of both chaos corruption in some cases, and straight-up mutation induced by radiation in others. In fact, their ships are propelled in space by something called a fission pulse drive, powered by unshielded atomic piles. The radiation produced by such abominable devices is extremely intense, and it's unknown if the Rak'Gol are naturally resistant to the radiation output, or if they simply don't care about being irradiated at all. This means that they also expose anybody they fight to those same level of radiations absorbed by their bodies, meaning that even being in close proximity of a Rak'Gol might induce radiation poisoning. Keep in mind that this species until now has been completely undecipherable. Their language, if we can call screams and guttural sounds that, is impossible to understand for for the Imperium at the moment. No Rak'Gol has ever surrendered, shown any sign of wanting to negotiate, or has shown anything but open hostility to whomever it has encountered. They are in all and all a species that revels in one thing alone: utter destruction. This is contradicted in a single novel, which is Fabius' Bile Primogenitor, but I can explain why we can discount it as a non-canon source. See, in the novel, it mentions that in the Eye of Terror there were also alien species currently trading: the Rak'Gol, the Herd, and the Zygo. None of these species would ever be able to trade with anything. Want to know why? The Rak'Gol are a hyper-aggressive and not reasonable xeno-species stuck in the Koronus Expanse. So how in the hell did they reach the Eye of Terror to begin with? And they emit a constant source of radiation from their bodies. Who would even get close?
The Herd are literally a species that actively influences the flow of space and time. Their mere presence even aging planets. Why would anybody even try to trade with something that actively ages you as you are near?
And the Zygo are such a minor xenospecies that they're only on one planet, and they probably don't even have faster than light technology to expand out of their planet. Why are they in the Eye of Terror?
Even Shock was having an aneurysm when he found out about this part of Primogenitor. So, Pio, do the honors.
Ding dong, Games Workshop is wrong.
So yeah, Primogenitor is not a good source for Rak'Gol lore. Nobody knows what the true objective of the Rak'Gol is, nor what makes them so actively hostile to everything in their path. They turn planets into irradiated wastelands for seemingly no reason, and attack everything and everyone indiscriminately, sometimes taking even prisoners that are never seen again. It is improbable that they are directly connected to the Yuvat, as they had been exterminated long before the Rak'Gol appeared in the Koronus Expanse, but if there is one species that deserves the title of Nightmares of the Koronus, it is certainly them. And if we believe the Witches of Footfall, if the plan of the Abominations, whatever it might be, comes to fruition, the galaxy will plunge into a new age of pure darkness.
The Rak'Gol. They descend from the heavens like a maelstrom of destruction. Everything they seek, and everything that they find lies in ruins, for they are of a lost age. Though if they do find the treasure they seek, a new age of strife may come upon us all. The Witches of Footfall, prior to the first sighting of the Rak'Gol.
And that is a general in-depth look at the species of the Rak'Gol, in all of their macabre and hyper-aggressive glory. Did you capture one of these too, Pio?
Yes. Though regrettably died as we were bringing him back.
Why?
I forgot to feed it for a couple of months.
As I said, Professor Pio is smart. For a Pio.
Wait though, I have a question. If they are so aggressive and open to fighting against others to the level of self-destruction if needed, how the hell do they reproduce?
Following the manuals, they lay eggs.
Eggs? For real?
Yes, it's the canon lore.
So, you are telling me that the Koronus is actively being devastated by giant over-aggressive chickens?
And with that you ruined the video. We're done here for today. Fuck you, Pio. I'll see you on Monday.
Damn, he left for real. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Remember that you can support us on Patreon, subscribe, star and Ko-Fi, and get access to the full Lore Destroyers episodes. And remember to follow us on Twitch as we stream 40k games and talk about lore on stream. See you in the lab for the next episode. Hopefully not on violent space chickens.